Welcome back, Colts fans, to the Blue Stable Podcast. My name is Destin Adams, and here with me is my co-host, who's always here, ready for the grind, Rashad McGinnis. Man, how you doing?
I'm pretty good, man. I'm just ready to get back to podcasting. Colts football is coming soon, man. We got, 96 days or something like that, I believe?
It's closer. Every day is closer. One of these days, the Blue Stable Trio is going to be back together. It feels like me, you, and Michael haven't been on the same podcast in a minute. Life's been busy. I mean, I was moving into a house. I mean, you have a kid. You can't get more busier than having a kid. Michael's team was in the playoffs. Emphasis on was in the playoffs.
He is going to be tight at that, man. Once he hears you say that, you know he's going to be upset with you, right?
Hey, now we're going to know if he actually listened to the episode when he wasn't here.
Right. You're correct. That's a good test.
But, yeah, Michael, if you're listening, the Mavs, I mean, you should have made the bet with me, man. The Mavs were never – they just don't have the roster to compete in today's NBA right now. Luka's amazing. Like, no one's going to argue with you about Luka. No, I don't think anyone should. Dude's incredible. But your second-best player in a playoff series cannot be Tim Hardaway.
I mean, it can be, but you're not going to win.
I guess you do have the choice. Like, you are free to do that if you will, but it's dumb.
Yeah, I don't recommend that.
But, Michael, we won't harp on your Mavs all day. There's some pretty big AFC South news. Depending on who you are, not the most positive news for a Colts fan, but Julio Jones is coming to the AFC South. He's going to be playing with the Tennessee Titans. Rashad, what was your immediate reaction to the news breaking?
I can't say that word, but I was like, man, it was the worst fear. You know, me and you talked about it leading up to it. It was like, man, as long as he don't go to Tennessee, we'll be fine. We was even willing to deal with him going to the Patriots. Just not Tennessee. We don't want to see Julio 2 times a year. I think his last 3 games against us, he's had nothing less than 120 yards. So, I mean, we've beat him. So, I don't know, man. I'm not excited about this move. But I don't think I was as – what's the word I want to use for it? Pessimistic about it as most Colts fans have been. But I guess we're going to get into that. How did you feel when you heard about the news?
I mean, like every topic, Colts fans tend to choose an end of the spectrum. They either want to be overly optimistic or they want to be overly pessimistic. I mean, scrolling through Twitter, you saw Colts fans saying that Julio Jones is washed. He's injury-prone. Julio Jones isn't a top 10 receiver, let alone a top 5 receiver.
Craziness.
But then you'll see Colts fans acting like Chris Ballard's the biggest idiot in the world because he didn't trade for Julio Jones. Titans fans acting like this is the missing piece to a Super Bowl for Julio, for this Titans team. See, like the pros and cons for me, and that's something I want to break down with you a little bit. I mean, as a Colts fan, the biggest pro that really immediately came into my head was this is less carries for Derrick Henry. The Colts are a team that I'm not going to say shut down Derrick Henry. That's not really the word choice to use. But if you look around the league and just like looking at what he was able to do, he still went for over 100 yards, but he did not look nearly as dominant against the Colts in the game where we were fully healthy.
The first game.
Yeah.
No, the first game or the second game?
It was the first game we won on Thursday Night Football. I'm not making excuses that the Colts were – that's why the Colts lost to the Titans or anything like that. But, I mean, you can't say that the Colts were not missing key guys. I mean, Buckner wasn't there. Autry wasn't there. And those are 2 big guys in the middle, and Derrick Henry runs for over 250 yards or whatever it was.
Yeah.
But that first game, you just saw, like, Derrick Henry did not look the same as he normally did. He still went for over 100 yards again. Yeah. But, I mean, when you have a guy like Julio Jones on one side and a guy like A.J. Brown on the other, can you really justify only throwing the ball 18 to 22 times a game?
No.
That's a lot of money in the receiver room.
Absolutely. You got to get the ball to your playmakers. And when you had Corey Davis as your number 2 wide receiver, it's a lot different from having Julio freaking Jones, you know. And he's going to demand his touches, man. That's just who Julio is. He commands that type of attention, and he definitely deserves that respect. And who would you say is the number 2 receiver over there? A.J. Brown or Julio?
So are you saying who's going to line up? Like who's going to get the cornerback twos?
Yeah,
Or
yeah. Who's
AJ
gonna?
Brown? AJ Brown's going to get the cornerback twos. There is not
For sure.
going to. There is not a
Yeah.
CB1 that is going to match up against the Titans. Is not going to ask for Julio Jones as their assignment.
So would you move AJ Brown to the Z, or would you play Julio as the Z and AJ as the X?
I mean, the biggest thing is like I like Ryan Tannehill more than most Colts fans. Like there are
Mm-hmm.
Colts fans that think he's trash. I think Ryan Tannehill is a very efficient quarterback. Like he does what he's asked. I think he optimizes the Titans' play style, especially the heavy play action that the Titans run.
Mm-hmm.
Like I think Ryan Tannehill has done so great in that role. But if you force Ryan Tannehill to throw outside the numbers and you make him throw those sideline balls, I
Yeah.
mean, someone's probably going to clip this and show me a few throws that Ryan Tannehill has had on the sideline, but he does 80% of his work in the middle of the field. Like
Yeah.
that's just who he is. Like that's where he wants to
Absolutely.
put the ball. That's just where his accuracy is better. And Julio Jones and AJ Brown, like their skill sets, like they're like you want to use the sideline. Like that's just like it feels like you're taking away so much from them. I never really understood the fit of Julio Jones with the Titans because of that. I just feel like you're taking away such a big strength of both receivers that way.
Mm-hmm.
But it's Julio freaking Jones.
Right.
I mean, like, yeah, there's limitations, but if you're the Titans fan, I don't think there's anything wrong with you being super excited for this. I mean, you get to watch Julio Jones 17 times next year if he's healthy the entire season.
In comparison to the guy that was going to be the number 2 receiver going into this year, I think Josh Reynolds they picked up from the Rams, who's a pretty solid receiver. You know, he's nothing special, nothing to write home about, but he's pretty reliable. He spent last season as a third wide receiver 3.
I would love if he was my receiver 3 or 4.
Me too. I would absolutely love it. He's a guy that's especially good in short space. You know, he's able to he run routes really well. He cuts really quickly, gets in and out of his breaks. You know, I think he's going to be good. He's probably going to move to the Humphreys role that Adam Humphries played for them.
It's gonna be interesting how they move their guys around. I won't be shocked if we see AJ Brown in the Y a lot this year, or the slot if you're listening. Like I just feel like they're gonna have to optimize one of them in the middle of the field on every down. Every passing down, you're gonna have to. I mean, if you want to use your X and Z guys as interior guys on the field, still you can, I guess. But I just feel like you're limiting your play calling, you're limiting your route trees that you're letting these guys run in those cases. So to me, you have to move one of them to the Y. I wouldn't say primarily, but they're going to have to be in the Y like 30% of the snaps to me.
Yeah, interesting thing. The Titans ran max protect more than any other team in the NFL. And for the people that's listening that don't know what max protect is when you only send 2 receivers on routes and you keep everybody else in a block. They like to run max protect on their play action plays. You know, that way you get the defense going toward Derrick Henry. And it's pretty much man on man on the outside with a safety in the middle. They like to run deep posts and an over route going across the middle of the field. Those guys can alternate who wants to run that route, just depending on how they're feeling, because they're both so interchangeable. And if you use them, like you say, the right way, then they could be really effective. But it is a bit interesting just to see how Tannehill is going to use those guys' skill sets, because he's not that type of quarterback that has an explosive passing game. But I think Julio's going to in a play action game for the Titans.
Now, the biggest con as a Colts fan looking at the Julio Jones trade, I mean, I've been pretty open that I'm not as high on the cornerback room as most for Colts fans. I'm not a big fan.
Our cornerback room or the Titans?
Yeah, the Colts
Okay.
cornerback room. I'm lower on Xavier Rhodes than most. I just do not see a way he doesn't regress this year.
Yeah.
And that's just giving him credit for, I think, how well he played last year.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't really think there's a world where he's better than last year for sure. And I really think it's going to be hard to even replicate it. I just don't see it. So I just think he's down. It's going to happen to me. I just really feel like there's going to be even a little bit of regression there. Kenny Moore's a stud, best interior corner, best nickel defender, best slot corner, whatever you want to call that position. Kenny Moore is the best at it in the NFL, and I'll argue that all day of the week. But then you're going to have a guy on the outside, and I just am really worried about whichever one of them is going to have to cover
AJ Brown,
who I believe is AJ Brown. Maybe they will move it around and make it Julio Jones. But can you imagine if Rocky Sin or Marvell Tell has to go up against Julio Jones for an entire game?
It's going to be a nightmare. And to your point that you made earlier, if they do decide to work AJ in the slot, I think it's doing us a favor. Honestly, if they line AJ, if we're able to get Kenny on AJ, and then we're able to match Xavier Rhodes up with Julio, that's a big plus for us. So let's hope they're dumb enough to do that.
Yeah, they're probably not listening to this podcast. We're not giving inside info or anything. But I mean, hey, whether we like it or whether you like it or not, Julio Jones is a Titan. We're going to see him twice a year next year if he's completely healthy. Now, I do not think this makes the Titans a Super Bowl contending team or a team that I should be afraid of. Am I excited to play Julio Jones? No. But if you look at the Titans' top 3 to 5 needs last year, nobody was saying their offense wasn't good enough. No one's saying that they didn't have enough playmakers. They just have so many holes on the defensive side of the ball. And, I mean, I don't even think receiver is their biggest hole on offense. They have a need at tight end with Jonnu Smith gone. They have some holes on the offensive line they need to fill up that Derrick Henry kind of just makes look a little better than they are.
Absolutely.
There are issues that this Titans team that were much bigger than going to get a guy like Julio Jones. So I do not think this is like some fill-in, holy crap, this fixes everything. But, hey, if your defense is going to be as bad as I think Tennessee is going to be, you might as well strive to score 40 a week.
Yeah, I think they had the 27th ranked defense last year. It was not good, man. And that secondary, with your number 1 and 2 corners are Janoris Jenkins and Caleb Farley, I believe.
If Caleb Farley can play week 1.
Yeah, that's right.
And we like Caleb Farley more than most.
Oh yeah. We think he has superstar potential when he's healthy, and he would have been a bona fide top 10 lock.
But if he plays week 1, that's something you didn't expect. Like that.
Absolutely.
So I'm not afraid to play Tennessee next year. I'm not. Like, that's just not where I'm at about all this move. Like, I think their offense was good last year. I think it's going to be good again this year. And if trading for Julio Jones makes it to where they throw 25 to 28 times a game instead of 18 to 20, I love this.
Yeah, that might play in our favor.
But moving on from Julio Jones and a little bit just in general about the AFC South, now that we've been talking about it, I put a tweet out this week where I went ahead and just ranked which team in the division is the best at every position and the head coach and GM positions, just because I feel like those have a lot of impact on the teams as well. And I got a lot of reactions. A lot of you guys were responding with your own. So I feel like it's a big enough topic that we should talk about it today. I think we should go into and figure out who we think is the best at every spot. So I want to start it off with head coach for the AFC South. To me, and what I tweeted out, basically, I think it's a tie between Frank Reich and Mike Vrabel. I love Mike Vrabel's style. I've said multiple times, I'm shocked that the Titans haven't adopted that dog mentality on the defensive side of the ball. Mm-hmm. Mike Vrabel has it. Like, Mike Vrabel is that guy who's just about it. And the Titans defense is just always feels like they're playing with so little emotion. And, I mean, I know that they're lacking talent on the defensive side of the ball, but it just doesn't look like they have that killer instinct that I feel like Mike Vrabel has. And Frank Reich, I mean, there are Colts fans that even don't give Frank Reich the credit, but I truly think Frank Reich is one of the top 5 to 7 offensive minds in football. I think he's one of the best play callers. What he's been able to do consistently being in that top 10 offense stat-wise with immobile quarterbacks the last couple of years is incredible to me. Keeping the playbook not stale, keeping it original, keeping defenses on their toes with a guy who's going to be in the pocket 24/7 in Phillip Rivers last year, to me was amazing. I'm excited to see what he's going to be able to do with Carson Wentz this year as well. But I have a tie at head coach.
Maybe biased. I'm gonna lean with Frank Reich, only because my only issue with Vrabel is, although it's very smart of him, he had Arthur Smith as his OC. And that was the most impressive thing about his team was his offense. And I know he's a defensive guy, so I want to see if that offense can keep up that level of play without Arthur Smith. I think if they do, it'll be a testament to how good of a head coach that Mike Vrabel is. And I just really want to see that first before I give him the knock. I think the Colts have been consistent on offense, and for them to finish with a top 10 offense last year with an aging Phillip Rivers, Frank Reich's going on his third different starting quarterback, or fourth different.
If you count the quarterback that shall not be named, Andrew Luck.
Yeah, Brissett. Yeah, so I have to give Frank Reich the notch there for him to put together that type of coaching. I think last year was one of his best coaching performances. I know he got a lot of flack from Colts fans about some of his play calling and the things he called in situations where he decides to be aggressive because he's more aggressive than the average coach. But I like it, man. I want a coach that's trying to win the game at all times. I never want somebody that's playing not to lose. So I'm good with Frank Reich, me personally.
When you start playing with that not to lose mentality, I feel like you've already lost. You've lost the locker room. You've lost respect. Mm-hmm. That's the biggest thing that I was arguing against Colts fans last year. Like, would you rather lose a game and hang your hat on the sign that says, I wish I would have been aggressive, or I was too aggressive? I would much rather go to the end of the day saying I did everything I could to put us in a situation to win that game, and I didn't leave any snaps on the field. I would hate being able to look back at a game and saying, if I would have just went for it on 4th and 1.
Yep. Exactly.
I would hate that. The best example to me was watching the Green Bay Packers kick a field goal with, I think it was under 3 minutes against the Bucs in the NFC Championship game when they were down more than one score. And just making that decision to go ahead and kick a field goal on 4th and short, to me, that's just losing mentality. You're just already setting yourself up for a loss. So moving on to GM, this one I'm just going to give the Colts flat out.
This is not –
For me, I just think Chris Ballard this isn't disrespect to John Robinson. I mean, I like how aggressive he is, but
me too.
To me, you have to start hitting on some of these aggressive moves before I start giving you the respect of Chris Ballard. How many moves has Chris Ballard made that you look back on and say, man, Chris Ballard messed up there? You just don't see many, if any, of those. There have been a few draft misses, but who hits on the draft all 7 rounds?
And John Robinson's drafting, it's not –
especially the top end.
Yeah, he got a couple bad misses.
But hey, I mean, to me, this is a big year for John Robinson because his 3 biggest moves this year all have injury flags. I don't think Julio's injuries are as big as people make them out to be, but I mean, there are still flags there. Caleb Farley is a big injury flag. I mean, I think he's super talented, but I mean, that's still there. And then his biggest free agency acquisition this year was Bud Dupree, who's coming off a torn ACL.
I forgot about that.
So those are the 3 biggest moves. I mean, he's putting a lot of hope in there. I mean, even if one of them hits, that's going to be huge for the Titans. But if all 3 are misses because of injury concerns and all 3 aren't able to play full seasons this year, John Robinson has to take some flack for that.
Yeah, it's going to take a lot of flack, actually.
But that's just me. So I give Chris Ballard. I just feel like he's more proven. I feel like more of his moves, even his risks that he has taken, have worked out. And to me, I think Chris Ballard is a top 2 to 3 GM in football.
I agree as well.
Next one's quarterback. This one's a little bit tough just because I'm going to go ahead and say Deshaun Watson's still in the AFC South. Will he be there week 1? Who knows? But currently – he is on the Texans roster, and I got to give that respect to him. Dude's a top 5 quarterback in the NFL when healthy and not struggling with some off-the-field things going on right now. So I have to give Deshaun Watson that. And then if we were to take Deshaun Watson out of the picture, I would probably still go Ryan Tannehill. I think Carson Wentz is going to have to prove a little bit more before he can overtake that role. Like I said earlier, I think Tannehill's a guy who just has optimized the role that he's been given in Tennessee in the offense that they have. I think it's really built to his strengths, which is what you always want to do as an offense. Arthur Smith is gone now. We're going to see a little bit different this year, see how they react and see if it's a little bit different for Tannehill and if he can still have success away from Arthur Smith. But currently, I got to give it to Ryan Tannehill still.
I agree. It wasn't much debate from me. We're not talking about peak Carson Wentz. We're talking about the Carson Wentz that we just saw. And I have to go off that. I have to go off with the last product I saw on the field, although I think he will be a hell of a lot better this year than he was last year. But if we're going off just that, I got Tannehill easily.
And next one's running back. We're going the whole room. So we're going every running back that could produce on the field next year. I'm going to go Titans still just because, the Titans aren't really going to put many other running backs on the field outside of Derrick Henry. Yeah. And the 75 to 90% of the snaps that running back are going to go to Henry. And I feel like that's what they want to do. And he's a stud. He's a guy that's just he's the most dominant runner as a running back in the league right now. And you have to give them that respect. I love the Colts running back room. I think they're the first or second deepest room at running back in the league with the Browns. There's a debate there you can go through, but it'd be hard for me to take another 4 running backs over the Colts because I think Jordan Wilkins doesn't get enough love either. When he gets in, he produces, and I can't imagine there's a better 4th running back in the NFL.
No.
But I'm going to go Titans because of Derrick Henry, but this Colts room, man, is dangerous.
Derrick Henry is one of those guys, the way when you're judging off a whole room, like he's that talented, like you can really give him that. But I'm going to go with the Colts. We're talking about the whole room, the room as a whole. Do you even know who the Titans' backup running back is?
They drafted one last year.
Mm-hmm.
I know because I handcuffed him in a dynasty league, put him on my taxi squad for the year.
Okay.
I can't remember what his name is off the top of my head, though.
Okay. I don't know either. I'm not sure. I know it's a young guy, though. They had Deion Lewis for a long time.
And he was starting over him. It was Darrynton Evans.
Yep.
And they also have Jeremy McNichols that they like a lot that plays a little bit of that pass-catching role for them. But Darrynton Evans is their backup running back. But like I said, Derrick Henry's getting 90% of those snaps.
Yeah. So I'm going to go with just because I think pass protection, we have 3 running backs that's capable of doing it. That was a knock on Nyheim Hines. I think he more than proved himself. And then besides, in passing situations, do you really want Nyheim's in there protected anyway? You're trying to get that guy out on the route. But Marlon Mack's back. He's a 1,000-yard back. We saw Jonathan Taylor did 1,100 yards as a rookie. Nyheim Hines is probably the most explosive player on our offense as a whole, aside from Paris Campbell when he's healthy. So I'm going to go with quantity over the quality because Derrick Henry is just an unstoppable force and the most dominant running back we've seen probably since prime Adrian Peterson, maybe. So, yeah, I get the Derrick Henry, and I'm never going to argue anybody that says the Titans just because of what he's done. The man had 2,000 yards. That's probably more yards than Taylor, Hines, and Mack. So he's a running back room by itself.
For sure. The next one I think is an easy one to give to the Titans as well. It's receiver. Julio Jones, A.J. Brown is the 1-2. That's ridiculous. I will say that the depth there isn't great. If one of those guys goes down, I don't really trust any of their other receivers to come up and be a guy that can play significant snaps. Just to say of her significance, did you know Chester Rogers signed with the Titans?
I found out today because I was looking to see what was behind Julio, and I literally found that out earlier today, and I was like, "What the hell,
man?
Most random thing ever."
Chester, hope you're doing well, man. Colts.
He might have a chance to make that roster.
With how little depth they have at the receiver, right. I wouldn't be shocked. They drafted a receiver in Dez Fitzpatrick, so I guess we don't really know much about him yet.
Okay.
So we'll see how that works out. But I mean, if they're keeping 5 or 6, I mean, Chester Rogers has had success in the NFL. We'll see. I mean, with Andrew Luck, but we'll see if he's able to do much about that. But I think that one's easy. Receiver is going to go to the Titans.
Yeah, I agree.
Tight end. I'm going to give it to the Colts because and Colts fans are probably shocked hearing this. Because Jack Doyle, Mo Alley Cox, Kylan Granson doesn't really sound like the sexiest tight end room. But let me just read you the tight end rooms in the AFC South. We have Anthony Ferksker.
That's the Titans. That's Titans starter.
Who, I mean, was not awful last year in that backup role, but, I mean, did not have a big enough role to go to town on. I mean, then we have Jeff Schwam, Jared Pinkey, and Tommy Hudson. So I think I can give the Colts the tight end over the Titans right away.
Yeah.
Tight ends for the Jaguars.
Tim Tebow.
The GOAT, Tim Tebow. The listed starter right now, Chris Manhertz, James O'Shaughnessy, and Luke Farrell.
What?
I mean, the Texans tight ends right now, our boy Rashad Brevin Jordan. Jordan Akins, Cale Waring, Pharaoh Brown. I mean,
Pharaoh Brown.
The tight end position is probably the worst position in the AFC South.
Yeah.
Without a doubt.
Akins was the starter last year, I believe, for Tennessee. I mean, for the Texans. Ugh. Goodness gracious.
So
I'm gonna go Colts.
You have to. I mean,
like
Doyle and Mo Alley Cox are the best 2 of the 8. If you took the best 2 of each team, Jack Doyle and Mo Alley Cox would be 1 and 2.
Yeah, I think Mo Alley Cox can start for any team in the AFC South
tomorrow, without knowing the playbook.
That's hilarious.
He can start right away. Like, that's ridiculous. But, yeah, the Colts have to take tight end. And this is another easy one for me. I mean, offensive line, we're going to go Colts. Top 3 offensive line in football. When Eric Fisher gets there's probably an argument to be made that they're the consensus number 1 when he's healthy. It's just guys that have all been together. And then there's holes on every other offensive line across the league. I mean, I like some of the Titans guys. I like Lewin. I like Saffold.
Yeah.
But Ben Jones, Nate Davis. I'm a big Dylan Radins guy. I hope he wins that job at right tackle.
I don't.
I mean –
because, of course, I think he's unathletic.
Yeah, wherever his sister is, if she still listens to the podcast, she knows that Rashad's a Dylan Radins hater. But there's holes on every single offensive line across this. So even with a backup playing left tackle for the first couple of weeks of the season, I think the Colts take this easy.
Yeah, it's a no-brainer. Like you said, once Eric Fisher comes back, the Colts will have a top, I'll say 2 to be generous. But I really think that's their strongest position group as a whole. Maybe aside from running back. I don't know. I might even edge that over running back because the Braden Smith not giving up a sack at all last season. Quentin Nelson giving up 3 sacks in his whole career is just outstanding. Ryan Kelly is a top 5, top 7 center. Like, it's just too much talent on that offensive line. That might be the best position group on this team.
And then when Eric Fisher's healthy, that's another Pro Bowl. That's another Pro Bowler being added.
If Glowinski's your worst starter, a guy who's solid, then you're pretty set.
We've had some moments where we've talked about Glowinski and ill will-ish at times, but Glowinski would start on all 3 of these other teams and not be their worst starter.
Exactly. Absolutely. And Glowinski just suffers from one of those things that, if you're the worst player on a dream team, one of those type of lineups, it's just one of those things. Like, he's an above average starter, but it's just the fact that he's the worst on the offensive line. It's just been where they have individual dominance. So
And you gotta nitpick here and there. Like if one of them's gonna lose a snap every now and then, it's usually Glowinski.
yeah,
So I mean,
absolutely,
it's just
absolutely.
but like that was an easy one for us to discuss as well. Moving on to the defensive side of the ball, this one's harder than I thought. For edge rushers, I gave it to the Titans on Twitter. I wasn't really thinking about some of these guys the Jaguars have. I think I'm still gonna go Titans, but I mean. Josh Allen and K'Lavon Chason for the Jaguars. I really like that one too. I like Roy Robertson Harris rushing from the little bit of the interior as well that they added this year. Ex-Colt Jihad Ward over there in Jacksonville now. He kind of reminds me of an Alquan Muhammad guy a little bit. I think he was a little bit better than him at times actually. I'm still going to go Titans just because I think Bud Dupree, if healthy, is the best of those guys. And then Danico Autry, I think, is going to be able to add some there. And then Harold Landry, who's going to rush off the outside as a linebacker, is a pretty solid rusher as well.
I like Harold Landry.
But Jacksonville's a close second for me at edge right now. I mean, the Colts are still young there. They're going to have to improve before they get in that consideration for me. But I like that young duo of Josh Allen and K'Lavon Chason.
How did Chason perform his rookie year?
I know he struggled with some injuries, but let me pull up.
That was interesting for me because, it's an LSU guy, and me being from New Orleans. I see them pretty often, so I saw a lot of Chason in college, but I didn't get a chance to really watch. Well, let's be honest here. Who watched Jacksonville other than, the couple of times we played him? So I didn't get a chance to see how he performed.
Look, I mean – this says he played in all 16 games, and his stats aren't the greatest. I swore he was hurt last year. Maybe he just got hurt in game and left. But I mean, he only ended up having 12 tackles and 1 sack. But a lot of young edge rushers struggle early. It's one of those
I agree.
Usually does take 2 to 3 seasons, which is the other reason that is big of like we're big pay guys. Like we wanted him. But very few pass rushers come in and impact right away. It's just such a hard position to learn how to beat NFL offensive linemen, first of all, and especially just being able to learn a little bit more pass rush moves. You're not really asked to have pass rush moves in college. Your athleticism wins you a lot of reps. Even in the SEC, where Chason came from, I mean, you're not asked to use your head as much of a rusher as you are your athletics. In the NFL, you got to be smart as a rusher. You really do. You have to have an above-average football IQ if you're going to have long-term success.
Yeah, that's why I wanted to tell people that saw us select pay in the first round to kind of temper their expectations. They're putting 8 and 10 sacks on this guy as a rookie, and I'm like, he didn't produce like that in college, although he wasn't used the way we're going to use him, and he was asked to do a little bit different role.
He was forced to bulldoze in the interior a lot in college.
Run stunts and slam into the guard. And they also wanted him to kind of read and react before he decide on, whether he wanted to rush. And that just wasn't the best way to use a guy like Pay. I think he's going to be used a lot better in Eberflus's defense. But Jesus, the expectations they put on this guy, we just want a consistent I don't even care about the sacks per se. As long as he's consistently getting pressure and beating his guy in one-on-one situations, which he's going to see a lot of thanks to DeForest Buckner. I think it'll be considered a success for me if he's able to consistently pressure the quarterback.
Quarterback hits are going to be a bigger deal to me than sacks this year for sure. It's a stat that I think is not looked at enough anyway, but just looking at his total pressures, his total QB hits, that's the thing that's really going to tell me how his rookie year went. But like I said, I'm going to go Titans for edge rusher, where the Jags is a close second.
I agree with Titans. I like Jeffrey Simmons too. I don't think people talk about him enough. I know we're going to get to him next. We
can go ahead and go there. Interior D lineman, I'm going to give the Colts just because I think Buckner is the second best interior rusher, interior defensive lineman in the NFL behind Aaron Donald. I just think he's that explosive, that dynamic. And then I think Grover Stewart is one of the most underappreciated players in the NBA as a one tech. I mean, he does so many things. My biggest pet peeve, and Michael's not here to defend it, is when people call him a nose tackle. I hate it.
Oh, God.
It's just not – there's just so much more to what Grover Stewart does than most nose tackles do. And if you just watch him on tape, you'll see it. I mean, he impacts the pass game in ways that nose tackles are never asked to do.
Mm-hmm. He's not a space eater. That's really what a nose is. They just want them to just clog up space, force the running back to a specific gap where you have somebody filling.
Who is the one tech that played for the Texans all those years in the interior? Big old dude. Played for the Patriots too afterwards.
Vince Wilfork?
Vince Wilfork. I knew his last name.
Yeah.
Like space filler. Like, I mean,
yeah.
His size was his biggest strength. And I mean, and he impacted the run game. And Vince Wilfork had a lot of good years, but
he did, absolutely.
But that is what I think of when I think of nose tackle.
Yeah.
Grover Stewart,
that's probably the ideal.
Grover Stewart is not a nose tackle, but that's just me. But hey,
absolutely not.
You just mentioned him. I love Jeffrey Simmons. He's a big bright spot on a pretty black hole defense that the Titans have, in my opinion. He's a stud. I love watching him play, and I just hate seeing the logo on the helmet. But looking at depth and how many guys that the Colts have there, the Colts get that for me. But Jeffrey Simmons is good enough that I probably give them the close second for there.
I do. I got them second. Off the simple Jeffrey Simmons alone, he's that good. Like he's a great young talent.
Next up, we have linebackers. There's talent in the AFC South at linebackers. So, I mean, Zach Cunningham for the Texans is a guy that is solid. I don't think he's as good as his numbers show, his tackles he gets. Like, a lot of them just seem like stats that lie to me when I watch him play. But he's solid. Like, he's not a guy that I would ever say is garbage or anything like that. Then we have the Jaguars. I like Miles Jack a lot.
I like Miles Jack too.
So he's a guy that I think is really talented at linebacker. And they also have Joe Schobert that came over from the Browns a couple of years ago.
Mm-hmm.
I like his game too. Tennessee, I like Jaylen Brown a lot. He got hurt last year. I was happy he was able to still get a job back when he was a free agent this past year. Rashawn Evans is all right. I really thought he was going to be better coming out of college, really. But, I mean, he's just one of those guys that Alabama's produced that had a lot more hype than his talent in the NFL has shown. And in the Colts, I mean, Darius Leonard to me is a top 3 to 5 middle linebacker in football. Some people think he's the best.
Some people upset. I was about to say,
some people have him as the best. And I really think the top 5 can almost go in any order. Bobby Wagner, Fred Warner, Darius Leonard, Eric Kendricks, Levante David, Devin White. Like, that's 6 guys right there.
Tremaine
Edmonds. I just think those guys are all studs. I mean, when you're in that elite company, does it really matter where you fall on the list of top guys? But for me, Bobby Okereke and Darius Leonard, like, they're going to get that here. They're going to get the best linebacker crew for me for sure.
I'm going to agree with that. Like, Darius Leonard is he's with all the talent, like Miles Jack and those guys, Joe Sherwood. Darius Leonard is just so much better than those guys. Like, I love those guys. I think they're all talented, but the gap between him and the next guy in the division is a pretty sizable one. And I think Bobby Okereke can take that next step now that he's taking full-time snaps at the Mike position. We all know he was kind of held back due to Anthony Walker being such a solid guy at the mic for so long, well-deserved. He was a great leader for our team. Sad to see him go to Cleveland. But I think Bobby Okereke takes that next step. What he's able to do in coverage is better than a lot of linebackers, and that's our second guy, I know we don't have the Sam quite figured out yet, but I'm going to take those 2 guys head and shoulders above the rest of the division.
Next up is safeties. This one's a little bit tougher than I think some people actually think. I'm going to give it to the Colts still. Kari Willis, Julian Blackman, I think, are guys that are just the best duo of this division for sure. Tennessee's 100% going to be last when it comes to safeties for me.
That's terrible.
First of all, I mean, Kevin Byard was a guy who 2-3 years ago people were trying to argue was the best safety in football, especially Titans fans. In the last couple of seasons, he couldn't cover me, and I'm fat. Like people gotta like get off the Kevin Byard. And I love Damani Hooker coming out of college, but man, running backs make him look silly all the time.
In space.
Yeah, and his strength was supposed to be he was a hard hitter and that he was supposed to be able to be very intelligent when it came to tackling lanes. And he's been awful when running backs have caught him in space. He ends up becoming a meme every single time.
Yeah, I like his game. I like his coverage ability, but I just don't see him as a guy that's going to show up in the run game. I'm going to go with Kahari and Julian Blackman. Blackman, what he showed in the beginning of the season especially, I mean, he kind of tailed off to the end of the season, but by that point, he hadn't already performed at a level where he flashed. We can say that. He flashed, and it flashed for multiple weeks. It wasn't just like a one-time thing. He put together a really solid rookie season coming off of an injury. So now that he's going to have his first full off season to really get better, I mean, he spent majority of last off season just rehabbing and not really a chance to really get in there and mix it up with the guys, which he's going to get a chance to do. And I think Kahari is probably one of the most underrated players on this team. He's been nothing but solid.
Maybe one of the most underrated players in the league. He doesn't get talked about. I bet you maybe some of the AFC South fan bases they know enough about Khari Willis, but I bet the average fan of every other division in football, if they heard Khari Willis's name, they wouldn't know who it is. And that's a travesty. Right. He does so much. Like at the strong safety position, man, like his instincts, his leadership back there, and he's done it day one.
Yeah.
Getting drafted, I believe it was the 4th round.
Yep.
And just being able to produce right away, I mean, does not get talked about enough. Now, the best safety in the division, and another guy who's very underrated, Justin Reed. I love Justin Reed's game.
I knew it.
And I mean, the safety room in Houston isn't bad. I mean, Justin Reed and Eric Murray both starting there. I mean, I like that. About Eric Murray. Lonnie Johnson Jr. In that is one of those third guys coming out. Terrence Brooks is a veteran I like. I like the safety room. I really do.
Lonnie's solid.
I mean, this Texans team is going to struggle this year.
Oh, yeah.
But they have some spots that have some talented pieces. I mean, there's some talented guys on this defense that I hope with how bad this team is going to be, they allow some of these young guys to get the work. And I really hope Justin Reed can put a whole full season together because he's one of those special kind of talents at safety. I love watching Justin Reed play. I really do.
Yeah, I think he's going to have eventually, if not this year, maybe next year, he's going to have one of those breakout seasons like Jesse Bates had. You remember when people wasn't talking about him, but he was just really good. He's been good for
Jesse
so long.
Bates is cold, Rashad.
Bruh, I love his game, bro. I love his game. And nobody seems to be talking about him.
Other than Bengals fans. I follow a few on Twitter, so I get to see Bates a little bit on my timeline.
Mm-hmm.
But again, the common fan does not look at like when they think of the best safeties in the NFL, like their heads just go to the big names. Like there are people that think Jamal Adams is still the best safety in football.
Yeah, that's absolutely insane, man.
Or people that think Tyrann Mathieu is the best safety in football. And Buda Baker.
I like Minka too, man.
Buda Baker, Minka, Justin Simmons, Jesse Bates.
No's a guy we haven't got a chance to see yet, man, because he's just so many injuries. It's just
Derwin James.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I have a good friend. I don't know if he's listening or not. Who's a Chargers fan. Derwin James is cold. There's a lot of good young safeties in the NFL.
There are.
We could talk about the safeties in the NFL for another hour, but
Micah Hyde and Jordan Poyer could be the best duo in the league.
Yeah, let's just be glad they're not in the AFC South.
Right.
And moving on to corner, I made a mistake when I did that on Twitter. I gave the Colts the quarterback room. Jacksonville gets it easy. Oh, yeah. My. I guess my head, as a guy who was so big on Shaquille Griffin all off season, how did I just space that he went to Jacksonville? I knew he was in Jacksonville too, but when I was making that list on Twitter, didn't even cross my mind. I love C.J. Henderson as a rookie last year. He's going to keep getting better with his instincts and being able to be that ball hawking type. And then Shaquille Griffin's a guy who I think can come in and play as cornerback one right away. Sidney Jones came over last year and showed he can play on the outside when he's healthy. I like that corners, man.
CJ showed up week 1 against the Colts and made a couple big plays against Ty.
One of Phil
And,
Rivers' dumbest throws I've ever seen, though.
I don't know what he saw.
Hey,
But
it was
I
first
like
week
his
jitters.
game.
It was first week jitters. Philip, if you're listening, keep coaching your high school, man. Killing it.
Yep.
What was
Yes,
that throw?
sir.
What was that throw?
No.
But yeah, the Jaguars take the corners easy.
Yeah.
I gave it to the Colts on Twitter, not even thinking. Too many question marks for me at corner on the outside for me to give it to them over Jacksonville. Tennessee's going to be last here again. I don't know if Caleb Farr is going to play week 1. I hope to God Elijah Molden plays in the slot day.
Oh, my God.
I will.
Oh, my.
I don't know if there's a thing that's on my wish list more. I don't know. If you followed any of my draft takes, I think Elijah Molden, if he plays in the slot, is garbage. I don't use that word much. I'll call people below average.
That's true.
I'll say players aren't up to the expectations. I don't call many guys garbage.
No, you don't.
Elijah Molden plays in the slot day 1 for the Titans. Whoever's playing the Y for Frank Reich that week is getting
because it can be any one of the top 4. He's getting cooked by any one of those guys. I don't care who it is.
They will have to find out in camp he has to play safety. There is no way that he goes into camp. He has to. There's no way that they can line him up in camp. I mean, they don't have a lot of gadget guys on this roster for receiver, I guess, so maybe he won't get exposed as much in camp. But
that's what I'm saying.
There was not a corner that was worse at the line of scrimmage on tape that I watched this past year than Elijah Molden.
I think he'd be a decent safety.
I think he could. I think if you move him to safety, he has that skill set. He's a little undersized. We're seeing some guys battle off that. I can't think of how long Molden's arms are at this moment to be able to see if he could move over there and play right away. But please play Elijah Molden at the slot. That's all I got to say.
They're not going to do it. They're not that dumb. Or are they?
And then third and last thing we're going to go for this, something I didn't even include on my thing, and I apologize for the brand, Pat McAfee, special teams. You got to include special teams. I'm going to go –
I didn't think about the special teams.
I'm going to go Colts still. I think the special teams unit when people think of special teams, they're just thinking kicker, punter, returners. First of all, if Nyheim Hines gets to go back to returning or Isaiah Rodgers, I just think that's just 2 guys that are just dynamic at it. And we're going to be very special there. But also just the special teams units, the kickoff team, the punting team, the field goal units. I just think the Colts are just so disciplined there. You don't really see many hiccups there as a unit. And then you add in the fact that Rigoberto Sanchez has really been a stud punter. Obviously went through a little bit of that cancer situation last year, but that's all been taken care of, God bless. And Hot Rod's going to have to earn the kicking job, but he was very accurate when he was asked to do his stuff last year. The Colts special teams, man, there was just not a time where we could blame them for a loss.
No, that was one of the strengths of this football team. I know Hot Rod, like you say, he had his struggles during the season. Missed a couple of kicks in the playoff game. But as a whole, man, you had to be pleased with what you saw on special teams. It was the first team in the NFL to run a kickoff back. And for a long time, was the only NFL team to run a kickoff back. So that department, Nyheim Hines being so explosive at punt returner, every time he touches the ball, you have to worry. Like you say, Rigo's one of the best in the game. We got a great long snapper. So,
Didn't even mention it. My bad, Luke Rhodes. My bad.
It's all good. It's all good. I got us, man. That's what we do. So I think the Colts get the nod here as special teams. It's no real weakness throughout this whole special teams unit.
And then moving on to our last topic, and this topic is going to be our one-call technology topic of the day. One Call Technology is a managed telecom service provider whose senior staff has 100-plus years of experience in virtually every aspect of business communications. Business phone system installation and services, managed telecom service providers, telecom carrier management, and high-speed internet. Head on over to One Call's website at www.onecalltech.com or give them a call at 888-585-8850 and tell them the Blue Stable guys sent you. last topic of the day, training camp is coming up. Hopefully, Rashad's going to join me up in the Hoosier State. And
Yes.
we're gonna take on training camp together for the Blue
Yes.
Stable. But there's going to be some fun training camp battles. There's some starting spots that are available that people are going to battle for. I mean, there are definitely some spots that are going to produce pretty impactful spots for the Colts this year. What's the one that you're the most excited to watch?
I can't move off of this position, man. CB3, or if you want to call it CB2, it just depends on, where do you rank it?
The outside corner opposite of Xavier Rhodes.
Exactly. I can't move off of it, man. It's a 4-man competition, so that make it the deepest probably competition for a particular spot, unless you're counting the defensive end spot opposite of Kwity Paye. I'm going to say cornerback, we have a 4-man competition between TJ Carey, Rock Ya-Sin, Marvell Tell, and Isaiah Rodgers. Who would you like to see win that competition?
So, I mean, personally, it's a 4-man battle because everyone's going to have a shot at it. I really think it's a 2-man race. I think it's going to be Rock or Marvell Tell. I really do. I just feel like the size, the skill set, like the other two, I think Carey outperformed my expectations on the outside last year, but that's not his strength. Like, you want him to be an interior kind of guy.
Yeah.
Same for Isaiah Rodgers. I mean, I would love for Isaiah Rodgers to get more work as a true corner this next year than he got his rookie year. But I think it's going to come down to Marvell Tell and Rock Ya-Sin. And honestly, I don't care who wins the battle. I just want the best guy out there. Whoever it is that in camp is looking like they're going to be the most dynamic guy to go out there and be cornerback 2. I mean, if you want to know my actual preference, I want the Colts to sign Steven Nelson tomorrow.
Hey, I agree with that. Nelson Allen, bring it to Indy. I feel a lot more confident about matching up with Julio Jones if we had Steven Nelson, I'll tell you that.
Chris Bauer's not a guy that usually makes those reactive moves, signing the guy because another team made a move. But I wanted Steven Nelson before, so I don't give a crap.
I was about to say, do you think that that's necessarily a reactive move?
That's how it would be perceived, especially by Titans fans. They would eat that crap for dinner, saying that we were scared of Julio, so we went out and got Steven Nelson. But hey, I've been on the signed Steven Nelson train since the man was cut from Pittsburgh. I think that was my first tweet. The day he got cut by Pittsburgh,
it was
first Steven Nelson to Indy tweet, and I probably had dozens of those by now. I want Steven Nelson here, but if he's not here, Rock Ya-Sin or Marvell Tell for the job for sure.
Yeah, I think Rock Ya-Sin's probably gonna win that job. Although I could see Carey, man, he ran some with the ones, some at OTAs. I don't know if that's just to try to, maybe light a fire in the Rock Ya-Sin, because this is a pivotal year for him. He's going into year 3. This is a season where you got to start kind of showing what you truly are, what you're truly going to be. And consistency, man. That's really what it is for Rock. That's Rock's problem, consistency. We see him flashes often, but he's just not doing it on a game-to-game basis. So
the thing about Rock that still has just left me optimistic the entire time is our coaching staff isn't one that has been afraid to say when someone's not doing their job. Like they've not been afraid to talk about it when asked questions. I mean, it was clearly said to us that Ben Banigou was not practicing well last year. Like it wasn't something that was a secret. It was not a secret that Quincy Wilson was a guy that the locker room didn't want there anymore. It wasn't a secret.
It was obvious.
But the front office has not wavered once. The coaching staff has not wavered once on Rock Ya-Sin. They've said that he needs to be better, but they have not once made a comment that made me feel like Rock Ya-Sin is not a guy they believe is going to be that spot. I just really feel like he's the guy that they expect to do it. That's the guy they want to have it, which is the reason I just feel like it's going to end up being him.
Mm-hmm. So what do you have as your one spot that's open for training camp?
I'm really excited to see who gets the Sam linebacker spot. They opted not to draft one. I was shocked. Chris Ballard loves to draft him some linebackers. And he hits on almost all of them, so I understand. But they decided that they liked the unit they had. There's some athletic guys to come in and play that Sam that I'm interested to see what happens. Zaire Franklin, EJ Speed, Matthew Adams, Jordan Glasgow, I could see getting a little bit of a chance in camp. They signed Malik Jefferson off the streets to kind of have a little shot there. Personally, I'm really excited to watch Zaire Franklin and EJ Speed in camp. I think those two, athletic profile-wise, are the ones that I would expect to get the first nod there. I think a lot of people want to see it be EJ Speed just because he's younger. But Zaire Franklin's a guy that the locker room loves. I mean, he's been a captain for a reason. He's a dude that produces on special teams, and they're always going to give those kind of guys chances to get active spots off special teams when they work that hard off the actual defensive side.
I like EJ Speed's game. I like the potential he has, but what I'm going to say is I don't think the Sam rule is best for him. Like I think he's more of a Mike kind of guy, and I think that he would be great in a reserve role behind Bobby Okereke. But as a Sam, you kind of want a thumper as your Sam guy. You want a guy that's real physical at the point of attack. You want him to be pretty athletic so he's able to move, but you want him to be really, really physical. And I don't think that's EJ Speed's game right now at the linebacker position. I think he's a great special teams player. We saw him block a kick, right? Block a punt. I think
with his face.
He did. He ate it in the face mask. You're absolutely right. I forgot that he blocked it with his face. But, yeah, as you can see his explosiveness and his athleticism. But I think a lot of people forget how athletic Zaire Franklin tested when he was getting drafted.
His RAS was higher than EJ Speed's. I mean, like he's athletically, he's a guy that people just don't realize how athletic he is. Now, the thing to think about with EJ Speed being a better fit at Mike. I mean, we've said it multiple times. Darius Leonard has not shown that he can play a full season. He hasn't. That's probably the biggest knock that I would have on not having him as my number one interior linebacker in the league. Is it just kind of feels like for Darius Leonard to be the best Darius Leonard, he needs to play 14 to 15 games.
Yeah.
Instead of that full 17 this year. And I hope I'm wrong. I hope he's able to put a full season together and I look like an idiot. But if that happens, I mean, Bobby's going to have to move a little bit. I mean, they kind of use him everywhere anyway. They're going to have to. So, I mean, maybe Bobby will have to play some will this year. We don't know. Maybe he'll have to play if Darius Leonard has to take some snaps off. And then, hey, EJ Speed can go up and play that Mike role if he needs to. There's going to be a lot of movement at linebacker this year. Anthony Walker, I know a lot of Colts fans hated him because he wasn't great in coverage, but it was underrated his ability to play all three spots.
Yeah.
He was able to play Will when needed. He was able to play Mike. He was able to play Sam. He was not great in coverage at time, but where I will say that he was really great at, in my opinion, was understanding tackling lanes. Was he the greatest at allowing guys to catch the ball? I mean, no. He struggled in coverage. But once they had the ball, there was not very many times where I saw him take an angle that irritated me. Darius Leonard hasn't even expertise that. Like Darius Leonard struggles at times to make the smartest tackling lane decision, and because that will whiff here and there. It's not an issue, but Anthony Walker was a guy that I just really never saw make that mistake.
Yeah. It just doesn't happen with Anthony Walker because mentally he was great. And even on the pass play, he struggled in pass coverage, but it wasn't mental breakdowns. He knew where he was supposed to be. He just physically he wasn't capable of stopping it because his athleticism was limited to a degree. I mean, it's a reason he was drafted as late as he was, and it's a reason he went to Northwestern. It's not like he was a guy that was bleeding with athleticism.
And there's a reason that they drafted Bobby Okereke as high as they did, because they felt like there was a need to improve there. I mean, when Chris Ballard tells a lot when he drafts, man, him being willing to take edges in the top two spots, it tells you that they didn't have full confidence in the young guys that were here at edge.
Absolutely.
People got mad about it, but if you don't have confidence in those guys, you find a way to improve it. That's just how you're going to have to do it. They took Bobby Okereke pretty high. I believe it was in the second round.
Yeah, they drafted Bobby Okereke in the second round out of Stanford, future Hall of Famer, as Pat McAfee called him. And
Okereke.
He's a great player, though. Great young player. We saw him get injured last year. He played with the club on his hand. Even made a couple plays with that club on his hand. I remember getting an interception.
That's the thing about Bobby Okereke that I like a lot. Dude is tough as nails.
He is. He is.
Dude's gonna be out there, rain or snow, injured thumb, injured jaw. Like he's just that kind of guy. Like he's gonna be out there, and that's the thing that I think is underrated about Bobby Okereke. That if he has to move around, he can. I think they're gonna like that EJ Speed's gonna get to move around a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
I'm excited to see this linebacking crew. I really am. It's gonna be a lot of athleticism on the field at once.
Yeah,
you're rotating Darius Leonard, Bobby Okereke, Zaire Franklin, EJ Speed in as the top four.
That is athleticism.
Ridiculous. And that's the thing where Anthony Walker moving on. I mean, it just adds more speed to the defense that they like to do. It takes away the experience. I think it takes away a lot of the intelligence off the defensive side of the ball, especially in the middle of Darius Leonard's not playing, if he's injured or anything like that. But man, they're going to be fast, and they like to be fast. Eberflus, I mean, like him, hate him, love him. Dude likes to run at the ball wherever it is. He wants every one of the players there. And I'm excited to see what that Sam spot ends up being, to see what three linebackers are getting those top three snaps.
Yeah, I'm excited too, man. It should be a good, fun battle.
But, hey, this is another episode of the Blue Stable Podcast. My name is Destin Adams. Joined with me today was Rashad McGinnis, co-host extraordinaire. You've been listening to the Blue Stable Podcast, the official Colts podcast of Fansided. Make sure that you're checking this out, subscribing, following the Blue Stable everywhere you can. Make sure you're subscribing to our YouTube channel if you want to see our faces when we're talking about this podcast. It's a whole different experience, man. You're seeing our ugly mugs talk football, and it makes you understand why we're podcast people and not TV personalities.
Yep, and if you want to check out the media availability that we was in, that is up on our YouTube. Feel free to go check it out. Talk to Marcus Brady. We talked to Matt Eberflus. Dustin had some great questions. I thought my questions was okay. So y'all go check that out, man. Make sure y'all tune in, and thank y'all again for listening, man.
And as always, go Colts. And we're getting closer and closer to week one, everybody. Keep fighting the good fight. Football is on its way back. BlueStable.com for all your Colts needs.
Yes, sir.